should new tech and fintechs be able to change the systems and show people how to change the systems and use interoperability to make that happen? So, Elena, that's a question really for you to start with.
So, and we touched on this earlier. So, bigger organizations like banks and outsource providers, they are the most likely to have legacy systems, and they are working on legacy systems. They are 30, 40 years old. The most used nav systems are 40 years old, but it's very difficult to move away from them. And again, because bigger organization has less time and resources, they have the budget, but they need to decide again what the priority is. Outsource providers is exactly the same, and they are in the conundrum where the buy side, they want to delegate to their outsource providers, and they pay a fee, and they say, give us a better service. We don't want to pay higher fees, so you need to keep the fee. The investors of the outsource providers say, we want to see more revenue. So how do I deliver a better service to my buy-side clients and give more revenue to my investors? So automation is the only answer. And so I do need to invest. The first few years I will be losing money because I need to invest in new technology. But again, I don't have the resources, so help me as a vendor. And again, Sean was saying, we are dealing with clients with multi-custodians. So we need to look at solutions because every client will have a different custodian, will have a different preference, vendor strategy. So as a community of vendors, we need to be able to deliver our products but in an interoperable way where I'm able to speak with you, with your client. You stay in your platform, as we said before, you don't need to leave. We'll be able to communicate. I will be able to push my data from my system into yours because of the open infrastructure of the API. So for you, a seamless experience, but we need to speak. So we need to do this for our clients. They are paying us to do this.
I'm going to I like disagreeing. So I think the main thing I disagree with is it's got to be quick. And I think multi-year investment, we've got to show ROI to the investors that is going to be. And how do you substantiate that is actually looking at the quantity and how you're improving your aged debtors or reducing that timeline and reinvesting the investments, or how you close items out quickly so you need fewer staff because you're automating. I totally agree with you about the isolation. So I think one of the key things that we can do as technology providers is look at the mainframes and isolate you from change. So in the background, you can start turning off certain things piecemeal, whilst the customer experience and the operations experience doesn't change. It becomes a technical back sort of ground task that's going on.
Yeah,
so it's an isolation.
It doesn't need to be a big bang, does it? It doesn't need to be a big bang.
No.
No, exactly. Small, manageable tasks.
Yeah, well, it is, and there's a lot of plumbing in the banks. We know that, and if you look at the different settlement systems around the world, or you look at the different custody systems, there's a lot going on there. But you can't drop your customer service because that's the differentiator for you as a custodian or an investment bank or a broker dealer.
Is any of that, though, John, I'm interested in your answer, but I'm interested in knowing if any of that is built around some people saying, I don't want to do this change because actually it could be my job.
There's certainly that argument, but there's also the, well, it's not broken, why fix it argument.
Yeah. Right? So
people will live with a relative level of pain until they get to that point where the sticky plaster snaps. So I agree with everything that's been said on the panel so far. I think, we have to manage the style and the frequency of change. And I don't think it's anything that you can solve overnight, and you have to sort of break it down into small chunks and just solve for the bits that are going to maximise the return on investment straight away.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at penalties, and I like causing it again an issue. The stats that have come out are that CSDR has actually halved the number of penalties. What it's actually done, if you look at the stats, it's half the value of the penalties, not the quantity of penalties. Because the quantity of penalties of an ops person is still the same, except you've now got partials to manage as well, which makes it even uglier. So how do you resolve that and put it so the ops cost is still there? I think the other thing about voting for your jobs and all the other good stuff about automation, it's life. Get on with it. You've got to get the technology in place because as a business, you've got to keep up with your peers, competitors, and be profitable and provide the client service. And technology allows you to do that. but there's a way of reallocating and moving people around so they focus on revenue generating. And the other thing is looking at the back office and saying, can you contribute to revenue? Can you charge interest for late settlements to generate some revenue stream? I had that conversation this morning with someone.
But the spotlight's on it now, isn't it? Being in a high interest environment, right?
You've got the perfect storm.
The fail rate, I mean, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's 6% something still from CSDR. That's 6%.
It depends where you go in the flow as well. But if you look at affirmations in T+1, you know, they're coming out with stats. We're getting affirmations that says 75, 76, 77%. That still means 24, 25% isn't being affirmed all the time. Doesn't mean they're failing.
Yeah, exactly.
But you've got this, what's happening in the industry is you've now got this reason to charge. But if you're going to charge, you've got to communicate. And you've got to validate and all the other good stuff internally.
Doing that, though, you can't communicate using email, can you? I mean, it's not a way of doing it, is it?
Well,
That's why we've got to interoperate between us and collaborate to come up with a solution that helps.
I think our friend Barnaby Nelson at Value Exchange I don't know if he's here today, he's come up with some stats on this, hasn't he? I think he said that for T+1, 51% of fails will be managed through phone and email. Now I think as an industry, I think that's pretty damning.
But we haven't got facts in there.
We haven't got facts in there.
We moved on.
Yeah. Or telex.
Well,
If you ask my kids, they don't know what fax is. They have no idea.
So I think that's a pretty damning statement.
Yeah.
You know, we've known about CSDR, T+1, all of these sort of gaps in operations, as we like to talk them, for a number of years now. And we're still at that point where 51% of breaks through T+1 will be managed through email and phone. There has to be a conversation where we penetrate that as a, you know, as a
and that's where, you know, technology, you know, rather than, and again, I appreciate a lot of people build in-house and all the other good reasons for doing that, but you can get economies of scale if you go to a vendor. The point of vendor is we're looking at it and we're bringing the brains from around the table and all the houses we meet, as well as, you know, bringing in ideas and solutions that we invest in to bring to the table to you then benefit from.
Yeah.
And you've got to choose the right ones. I get it. I 100% get what's external and what's not.
Any further views on that?
No, I wanted to add, didn't want to spoil it, but speaking with continental European clients, they are still very much using faxes. So we haven't got rid of faxes, and they are still there very much.
Yeah, but it's an electronic fax. It's not that old thing that used to go in the corner and buzz out a piece of paper. That's it.
I'm not getting no denial.
I haven't seen it for ages.
Not until recently. I've worked with Japanese clients that want to have physical fax, so they can
Really?
chop it with their ink-based chop. Yeah. And then send
Put
it
a
back.
stamp on it with a wet
We see
wet
that. We
signature.
see that in some of our solution sets or in OTC confirmations, for example. You know, it's a bilateral exchange of an agreement, and they still want the physical signature or the physical chop.
We are working with the city, and there is a working group aimed at just work to get rid of faxes because they are still so commonly used.
That's the Zitzi one that
Exactly.
we've also been asked to join.
But I think going back to your point, you know, you aren't going to get rid of email tomorrow.
Yeah.
To be really clear about
No,
it.
no,
So you've
it's
got
never
be
gonna
able
disappear.
record all of those items and suck it.
It's about how you interop with the email as well as Symphony, as we saw earlier on from Keishan's bit.